husband is gay and he has a boyfriend. Yes,
My
the choir
husband?
director.
Woo, the drama has hit the church house. No marriage shall be spared. Ooh, I got a good one. So this young lady finds out that her husband is gay and he leaves her for another man. And child, all this takes place in the church. And his daddy is the pastor. So if you in the mood for some good black church drama, child, it's the one.
Buckle up. So it was in December, and my husband was the music director at his church, where his father was also the pastor.
And don't forget to tell him about the family secrets, too.
He was at the church doing rehearsal for the Christmas musical, and I was at home. During that time, he was not staying at our house. He had left and just never came back. He left in October, never came home. That's a whole nother story for another day. We can talk about that if you want to later. Anyway, so he was doing that. I was at home. I saw a message in my social media from somebody that I didn't know. It was sent a month prior, but for some reason I didn't get it. So I finally saw it. It said something to the effect of, please tell your husband to stop harassing us. And I was like, what the hell is this about? I don't understand. So I asked this person, what are you talking about? They tell me everything. My husband's been harassing them and their friend. And my husband also has a boyfriend. Proceed to give me all the information as well as video of my husband and his boyfriend. So then I start calling all my friends and telling them he's cheating on me. That's what it is, aside from, his abuse. But
wait, hold on. He abusing you and he gay? Child.
But I digress. I'm like, he's cheating on me, blah, blah, blah. One of my friends comes over and is like, it's okay, girl, I got you. Then I go down to the church and confront him.
I'm going to rewind all the way back to around April. We had been arguing a lot. Mind you, he was gaslighting me, very emotionally, verbally abusive. So every single time I brought something to his attention, it was a fight. So I was just fed up at that point. And I was like, we got to figure this out. So I told him, I think we need to separate for a minute, not separate, we're getting divorced, separate, you go sleep at your mom's house for a little bit, for a week or something, not even a week, a couple days, get our heads on straight, come back home, get our shit together. Well, he does that and doesn't come home for a month until the day before our anniversary. And again, you might be asking, he didn't come home, you didn't make him come home. No, I couldn't. He was abusive. You can't make an abusive person do anything. Anyway, so all of that happens. Fast forward, nothing really gets better over the months. We're having money problems, he's overdrafting accounts, all this crazy shit. One of the days I talk to his mom and I just tell him I tell her things are really rough, and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm just worried that it's actually worse than what you're saying. And 2020 vision, I'm looking back now, and honestly, I think she had an idea of what was going on, because her comment came out of nowhere. It was I think it's something worse. And at the time I was like, what worse? What worse? So he ends up losing one of his jobs. He worked multiple because a new boss came in, but that doesn't really matter to the story. Fast forward, it's now October and we're still it's still not good. He's coming home super late. He's coming home at 10 p.m., but I can't ask him shit about it. He'll get mad at me. He would just start a fight every single time, not come home till 2, 3 a.m. after he fights with me. And it was this one particular night in which I went out with a friend, accidentally left my phone in the Uber, started calling him from her phone. He didn't answer. I finally get home after midnight and he's dead asleep in the bed. And I was turned the light on and I was I've been calling you. You don't even care if I came home. You don't care if I'm safe. You're asleep in the bed. I should be home at this hour and you don't even care where I am. So then he gets mad at me, starts a big old fight, leaves, doesn't come home for a while, and I was just done with that. So the next day I left and I went to my friend's house, and my friend lived an hour or so away. I stayed there for a little bit. So while I'm at my friend's house, he ends up overdrafting our accounts. So I say, hey, can you put your money in? Can you put your checks in so that we're not overdrafted? And he ends up leaving me with $1.12 between the two accounts that we had. There was no money in the accounts to pay our bills, and our bills were due. And he did this partly because he was getting back at me, because the night before he had said that he went out and he went to go visit one of his friends. This friend was a friend that he did paraphernalia with when he was younger. When he had told me, I was like, that's the drug friend. And when I said that, he acted like he was all offended. So he ended up leaving me with no money to pay our bills. So I ended up calling up his mom and telling his mom what he did to me. And she's just like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it. So I end up going back down to where I lived to go talk to his parents after he did all of this. And that was a whole ordeal. But yeah, basically, I'm going to have to put the talking to his parents story in a different video because this is going to be way too long. But after he left me with no money, I ended up staying at my friend's house for a few weeks. And then I finally go home and he still isn't staying at the house. He comes back because I asked him, like, I need your credit card so that I can pay the bills. I need to pay your credit card bills. He drops off his cards and he tells me he's not coming home. And from then on, he never came back. He told me, I'm not coming home. And he never did, although he was supposed to. Like, he wasn't saying he was never coming home ever at all. He was just saying, I'm not ready to come home yet. But now I know he was cheating on me. He was staying at his boyfriend's house. That's why he never came home. And he ended up giving me his credit cards to pay the bills, but he never continued to help me pay the bills. Basically, from that moment on, he got an attitude and was like, not paying any bills. After he left me with $1.12 in our account, he was like, I'm not paying the rent. Mind you, we were renting a house from his parents, and he just stopped paying. And he stopped paying every single bill, or stopped helping me pay. And during that time, I also had gone and taken time off work. I was on disability because my mental health was so bad. And so I couldn't even take care of myself. I had to jump right back into finding another job because he left me in such a shitty predicament. So also, when I went to go talk to his parents, when I had ended up coming back, to where I lived, I went to the church to talk to both of his parents. I sat down and I told them everything, everything I could think of that had ever happened, all the horrible that he had done to me. I was bawling my eyes out, crying. And his dad was just like, oh yeah, that's financial abuse. That's unacceptable. We can't have that, yada, yada, yada. And his mom's solution was to help me pay some of the bills. Mind you, no accountability for their son. None. Zero accountability. I don't even think they talked to him about the shit that he did to me. But at the time I was like, okay, they're listening to me, they can help this turn a corner. And at this time, I didn't know he was cheating on me yet. But now I realize his parents are just enablers of his bad behavior, and they bail him out of every single thing that he does. His dad didn't give a shit that he was abusing me. His dad didn't give a shit that he was financially abusing me, squandering all our fucking money. I told them, so I had gone to Disneyland, and while I was there with my friend, I was talking to his mom, and his mom was like, yeah, I gave him $60 because, he said that he was going to get you something, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, he didn't get me anything. So he had lied to his mother, asking her for $60, telling her he was getting me something, and he never got me anything. He just needed $60 to either buy alcohol, because at the time he was drinking very heavily, or my belief is that he relapsed. So he might have been getting the drugs.
So she gave us the backstory. Now let's go back to where she confronted him at the church.
I get to the church around the time rehearsal is ending, and I talk to him. A mutual friend of ours who went to the church came with me to, just be there for moral support. So I say to my husband, I'm like, hey, can we talk? And he kind of rolls his eyes. He's like, bitch, I don't want to talk to you. But he does anyway. So we go into the church office, And I say to him, you know, I know we've been having some difficulty in our marriage lately, but, you know, I got this video and, you know, you're calling this guy babe. And I show him the video and he's like, oh, we're just messing around. And I was like, I know you don't mess around like that. And then he proceeds to start, you know, getting mad, yelling at me, basically calling me a dog, telling our mutual friend to put a muzzle on me. At this time, my father-in-law, the pastor, walks into the office, starts making copies and shit for whatever reason, as my husband is like upset and yelling at me, right? And so his dad's like, just talk to her. But obviously he's, you know, super upset at this point that I have found out everything about him. So then he, you know, leaves. And then that's when I just totally lose my shit. And I just like fall down and I'm like, I lost my husband. Like I could not even like, I couldn't even really stand up. So yeah, I was like, I lost my husband. I was just like, call your therapist. So I called my therapist and I left him a message and then he called me back and he was like setting up an appointment with me for the next day. And I text my brother-in-law and I was like, you know, your brother has been cheating on me and he has a boyfriend and you probably already knew this. And that's another story for another day as well. There's a lot with that. And I forgot to mention, my father-in-law knew that my husband was cheating on me for a year. I just sit on the floor, I sob, not even sobbing, wailing, my husband, I lost my husband, and just like yelling out, crying out for Jesus. I finally muster the strength to kind of stand up, and then my neighbor who also went to the church was there and was like, hey, like we should probably pray for her. I'm like bent over because like I can't even stand. And my, you know, father-in-law begrudgingly walks over to, you know, pray for me and all this stuff. So I leave the church. My husband texts me, basically tells me it's my fault. Everything's my fault. He proceeds to call me a cunt, as he's telling me that it's my fault. He's like, you know, you're a cunt and you did this. You were a terrible wife. And so since I knew that he was staying at his boyfriend's house, I took a little drive over to his boyfriend's house to tell his boyfriend's mother that my husband was staying there, because his boyfriend was 19 and at the time my husband was damn near 30 years old. So I was like, yeah, that's weird, that's inappropriate, and no. So by that time it was like midnight. I went a-knocking. I knocked on that woman's door and I didn't care. I was like, somebody about to answer, because no. I was like, hey, you know, is this your son? Is this his name? And she was like, what? And I was like, yeah, well, I just wanted to let you know that your son is dating my husband, who is just about 30 years old. He was like 29. Damn near 30, okay? And he has been sneaking into your house and staying here. And then apparently my husband was there. He was like, I don't know, staking out around the corner or something like that, because he texted me and was all pissed off at me for doing that. After that, my friend drives me to her house because she didn't want me to stay alone, obviously. So she drives me to her house and I stay at her house. She ends up calling my boss because she was like, she used to work at the same place I just got a job at. And she told my boss what happened, and told them, you know, I wasn't coming into work. Oh, and mind you, his grandma had just died. So like she had passed away like a few weeks to a month before I found out. And we had just had her, services like 5 or 6 days before I found out that he was cheating on me. The whole thing with his grandma, oh my God, there's so much. So as I said, his grandmother passed away. And when that happened, he was not at the hospital. So she was, you know, she was very old. She was like in her 90s and she was in hospice. And so I stayed at the hospital because I was like, they said she was going to pass away, so I'm not leaving, because I loved her. Like, she was everything to me. So anyway, so I stayed. I had to call him to tell him that his grandmother passed away. So now we are now at her homegoing services. And he had an orchestra play there because his entire family is very into music. His mom, his dad, and both of his brothers, they're all musicians. So they had an orchestra. Well, guess who was in the orchestra? Yeah, his boyfriend was in the orchestra. And I found out about this because I ended up like seeing the program that they had. So this man was literally doing all this stuff in front of everybody thinking that they wouldn't know. Because also, when he did the Christmas musical, his boyfriend was also in the Christmas musical in the orchestra. So let's fast forward to Christmas. Like I said, his boyfriend was in the Christmas musical. At the time, I didn't know until, again, seeing the program. But now I'm going to pause really quick before I continue to say more things. I was young. I didn't understand a lot of things. And I was also very, very, very evangelical. And this plays into why I did what I did. Okay? He was doing the musical, and it was a weekend long thing. And he had a prop that he needed that was at our house, and I brought it to the church. Should I have done that? No. Like, duh, me now? Absolutely not. But I was a dumb evangelical wife, okay? Anyway, I did that. Get to the church. His dad sees me. He's joking around with me like freaking 5 or 6 days ago. I didn't just, not even 5 or 6 days, maybe like a week and a half ago. I didn't, find out that my husband was cheating on me, okay? And like that's what his family is like. So then Christmas Eve comes. I haven't heard from his mother since December 10th to Christmas Eve. Hadn't heard from her at all. She hits me up and she's like, oh, do you want some tamales? Because at the church there was a woman, or is a woman, who makes tamales every year for Christmas, and she sells them. And I was like, I don't want to talk to her, like, the hell? But, maybe she's throwing out an olive branch, she feels bad. So, I'll take it, whatever. So my brother-in-law comes and picks me up because at this time I could not drive. I was extremely sick, like so sick where I couldn't walk anywhere without having an asthma attack. I had to like sit up sleeping. I was on the phone with my friend at the time, and I was talking to her, and I had to stop talking. I was like, I have to get off the phone with you. Like, I can't talk. And she came over, took me to the hospital, and I literally would have passed away if she did not take me to the hospital to get treatment. Anyway, that's how sick I was. So I couldn't drive anywhere. Plus, I was like, in my head, I couldn't, I was not there, okay? He came, he picked me up. I went to their house. I kid you not. I sit on their couch. They just watch Christmas movies. Nobody talked about what happened. Nothing. So I'm sitting on the couch watching Christmas movies with them, like everything's fine. And I'm just sitting there, and I just start crying because I'm just like, what the fuck is happening here? And then before I leave, his mom comes over and like gives me a hug, and I just start bawling. And still nobody says anything to me. Nothing. Nobody talks about what the just happened to me not too many days ago. That's the kind of family that he's in. So I go home and I don't hear from his family again 4 weeks, till the new year, till after the new year. And his mom asks me for rent. So I actually need to go back and tell you this. So leading up to me finding out that he had cheated on me, I was going to couples therapy with my husband, but then he like wouldn't show up sometimes. He got mad at me one day, and we had therapy in the morning, and he just blatantly didn't show up. So I called his oldest brother, and I was like, hey, because he worked with his oldest brother at a school. And I was like, hey, whatever about your brother, like, can he have this day off so that we could go to therapy together? Because my husband's excuse was, oh, well, I have to be at work, blah, 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 blah. So his brother is like, he doesn't work on this day. So every single day this particular day, I believe it was like Mondays, he would get up early in the morning as if he was going to work, and he was never actually going to work because he didn't work on that day. So I found that out. Okay. And when he wasn't staying at the house anymore during that like October to December time, that oldest brother was like, hey, come, stay at my house for some time, yada, yada. At the time, like, I'm just going through it. I'm sad, I'm depressed, all of this stuff. So I was like, well, it would be nice to stay with, family, what I thought, right? Just whatever. Even though, it was kind of weird, but whatever. I'll stay with you. So I did. And that's important. Okay, that's important to the story that I stayed with him. So, fast forward again. Now it's December. I found out he cheated on me, all this stuff. The night that I found out that he had cheated on me, he calls me. So I leave the church. I go to my friend's house to stay with her for that night because that was a devastating night. And he calls me or texts me in the middle of the night and is like, basically like, I have something to tell you. Do you have to report like things, and like you better not tell anybody, right? And I was like, what? Because yeah, like it was just crazy. So anyway, he tells me all that. Then he tells me that he experienced some childhood trauma. Okay, this is the same fucking night that I found out that he was cheating on me. And he tells me that he experienced some severe childhood trauma. Now, when I think back on it, that's what narcissists do. They have to become the victim. So now he's the bad guy in the story because he cheated on me. So everybody's going to see him as the villain. But now he has to become the victim. So he tells me that he had childhood trauma, which the childhood trauma was real. And I'm not knocking that. But it's the timing and how he did it. So he has to become the victim. And so, he's my husband. Like, obviously I care. Like, that's awful. I can't believe that happened to him. And so with that, this whole thing ensues with his childhood trauma. He ends up telling his parents what happened. He told a bunch of people at the church what happened to him. And his father's response was, I could lose my job as pastor at the church, be a Joseph, like Joseph in the Bible, and think of the consequences that could happen to this person. They could be an offender. Okay, they could go to jail and lose their job as well. That is what his father said to him when he told him and about his childhood trauma. And so this whole thing ensues, and there's an investigation that happens, and like cops start coming to my house and everything. So yes, my father-in-law knew that he was cheating on me with a man. So the people who told me, it was my husband's boyfriend's ex-boyfriend. So it was the ex-boyfriend and the ex-boyfriend's best friend. They told me that he was cheating on me, okay? So my husband started harassing them, like sending them wild-ass messages, which they sent me. So I got to read all that shit. And they had went to his dad. They went to the church, met with his dad and said, hey, your son is harassing us. Please tell him to stop. And he was like, I don't know what you're talking about, whatever. And they're like, this is his boyfriend. And his dad was like, boyfriend, what? Blah, 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 blah. That was a year prior to me finding out. Okay. So his dad knew. His dad went to my husband and asked him about it. And of course, my husband lied and was like, no, blah, blah, blah. Of course I don't have a boyfriend. But my father-in-law never told me that any of this happened. And I know this for sure happened because, one, these people told me, and then
Immediately after I stopped talking to them that night, before I confronted my husband, I called my father-in-law and I said, I need you to tell me the truth. Did this happen? Did these people come and talk to you? Did you know this? And he said, yes. And then he said to me, the person who came and told me did not have a trustworthy name, because he had a name that came out of the Bible of someone who, I guess, wasn't that great of a person, I guess you could say. That's what the this man said to me, okay? So yeah, that's the kind of person and kind of family that I've been dealing with. So now, to continue on with cops coming to knock on my door, well, the person that had inflicted the childhood trauma, I messaged that person, or they had messaged me. We were messaging, basically. And I said, did you do this to him? He said that you did, blah, blah, blah. They admitted to it on text message to me. So the cops were coming to knock on my door to ask me about it because I had the fucking evidence. So if we think about this, from December 10th to the end of December, I am dealing with finding out that my husband cheated on me, had a boyfriend for a year. My father-in-law knew about it. And now I find out that he has experienced severe childhood trauma. And the person who did it has told me, yeah, that happened. And it's not my fault that he's gay. That is what the person said to me. Which, no, like, I mean, you can't make somebody gay, but also and so part of the reason, honestly, I think that I was asked to stay at my brother-in-law's house was because the family in general knew that I was getting closer to finding things out. And like, they're a very, if you've seen Greenleaf, they're that type of family, like 100%. You know, keep things hush hush. This is between our family. You don't say nothing, whatever. Like, we will ride or die for our family secrets. That was them, and I am not about that life, and I think they wanted to keep an eye on me. I could be wrong, but that's what I think. So after he tells me all of that, you know, I'm laid up in the house sick. I ain't got no money to pay no bills. I also believe that he has relapsed on drugs, and I also know for sure that he is drinking very, very heavily. Like, he came and he was like, I'm an alcoholic. So I know that he's struggling with that, okay? Amongst the childhood trauma, okay? So I tried to go to the church and tell the church, like, hey, because they fired him because he was gay, okay? So he ain't got no, his little pastor job or music director job no more. But I go to the church to say, hey, like, his dad is being trash. His dad is not trying to, you know, help him through this trauma, okay? Secondly, he's not well. Like, can y'all help him? Can y'all, like, stand alongside him and support him? You know, like, I don't want him to die. Like, he's a shitty ass person right now, but, you know, I still love him as a human being. Yeah. And I went to the church, and there was a pastor's, or there was like a meeting that was set up with like the church staff and his dad, and you know, that's my husband. It was about him and everything, and so I wanted to be in that meeting. So I show up to be in that meeting, and my father-in-law wouldn't let me in, and that's a whole thing too. So there's a meeting at church with the staff and the pastor, which is my father-in-law. And essentially, my father-in-law goes into the meeting, talks to the staff, doesn't tell them really the truth about what's going on. He essentially lies by omission, okay? I wait outside because he wouldn't let me in, and he wouldn't let another staff member, which is kind of weird, who was my friend, our mutual friend, who came with me when I confronted my husband. And we both sat outside, and I was like, okay, like, they're probably going to come out and, like, ask me whatever. No. Everybody came out, ha, 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 he. Everything was fine. Asked me if I wanted some fucking pizza. Oh, you want to have pizza? We're having pizza. I was like, no, I don't want no fucking pizza. What the fuck is going on? But I talked to one of the deacons and he had no idea. He had no idea. And so I told him, and I thought that people would care, but they didn't. I mean, they pretended like they did. Okay. And also, meanwhile, all of this is going on, right? In the background of all of that is still my husband and these people who had told me what the fuck was going on about him cheating. And he's messaging them back and forth, and he's like, isn't this enough already? Like, are we even now? Blah, da, 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 da. Like, he's hitting them up, telling them, like, you know, watch your fucking back, basically. Don't fuck with me anymore. He's acting all wild and crazy over here, and then these people are telling me everything that he's doing, and I'm trying to, like, keep my head on straight. Like, I'm sick. My marriage just imploded in my face. Everything I thought that I knew is like, what the fuck? And like, my head's just going like this at the time. So all of that is going on, and I'm just like getting all this information. I'm questioning all of these things, like, what the hell? And trying to go to work at the same time. Okay. Also, this goes back to my mother-in-law. Soon after I found out that he was cheating, they had told people at the church that they wanted me to move out of the house. My husband and I were renting a house from them, and they told people, yeah, like, she needs to move out now. Okay. When I say soon, I mean like a couple weeks after I found out he was cheating. So then my mother-in-law, like, after Christmas Eve, she doesn't talk to me. She doesn't hit me back for a long time, okay? Like, sometime January or some shit like that. Anyway, it was a long time. And I was like, this is weird. And she hits me up and asks me, hey, who can I talk to about rent? And I said to her, I would never withhold anything from you if I had it. If I had the money, I would absolutely give it to you, and you know that. I said, as far as I know, he is sleeping on your couch. So ask him, because he had stopped paying every single bill. He just stopped. No, I'm not going to do it anymore. And so I was going to work, paying all the bills that he just dropped off the planet with. And when I say paying all the bills, I mean all the bills. He didn't give a about a phone bill. He didn't give a about a car note. Nothing. Okay? And while this was all happening as well, I had to close my bank accounts because he was swipity swipe all the money away, and also overdrafting my account, using my credit cards to, like, buy fucking games and shit on his phone. Like, he was hundreds of dollars of fucking tokens on some stupid ass game on his phone. Like, it was wild, okay? I had to close bank accounts and declare fraud on my accounts. So she's sitting over here asking me for rent money, and also wanting me to move out, which I was trying to gather my money so that I could move out, but I had a new job and I was living in a city. Rent is expensive anywhere, but this is like a very expensive city. And it's hard to afford somewhere to live on your own there. So I was going all up and down the state trying to find somewhere that would be affordable. But I still had to gather the money to have a deposit and all of that stuff. And that takes time. Like, I'm not trying to mooch off of anybody. If anybody knows me, like, they know that I'm not that person. And so for her to do that, mind you, they weren't hurting for money. Like, his family has money, okay? They're fine. They're fine. Anyway, so yeah, she's asking me for money when her son's sitting at home. And so during this time, I am sick. I am dealing with him, still harassing people. I am dealing with having to move out, trying to figure out where the I'm gonna go, knowing these people want me to move out? It was a lot. It was so much, and I could barely handle it, and it led me to the hospital, 5150'd. So, we left off on, I was 5150'd. So, like this comment says, trust me when I say the church knows everything and they will not help. That is so very freaking true. So I lost essentially everybody that I thought would be around for me at the time. Damn near all the people at the church didn't give a f about me. They all stayed at the church, even though they knew what was going on. They knew how awful his dad was as the pastor, sweeping things under the rug, hiding them, telling his son not to turn in the person who, inflicted childhood abuse, all of those things. They knew that. They knew it all. And they're still there to this day. And I was just made out to look like the crazy person. And I also had a friend, it was my brother-in-law's girlfriend. I thought we were real close. She was in my wedding, whole thing. But she was trying to get back with my brother-in-law at the time. And so when I tried to share with her, like, oh my gosh, my husband cheated on me, yada, 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 she didn't want to hear it. She was like, nah, girl. And that really devastated me to my core, because I thought we were friends for real. But I guess I should have known better. But again, I was young. I was very young. So you live and you learn. So I lost everyone from the church. I lost people who I thought were friends. And the church didn't listen to me at all. And that was just a blow, because I grew up in church, and my understanding of what church is supposed to be is a place of support, and it wasn't. And, to all the people who aren't Christian or who have left the church, I get it. It's church. They're fucked up people. I know that, okay? You don't have to tell me. Please do not come in the comment section and tell me, girl, you should have known. I didn't. Now I know. And we can move past it. Anyway, because of all of that, I was very, very depressed. So I reached out to the hospital. I don't know why. I thought, I was going to be like the famous people that go away for like 3 months because they have depression and they go and, stay wherever. But I was like looking for an inpatient treatment, because I was just like, I can't keep going to work. I'm going to. Okay, so I call the hospital, and I am like, hey, I need to talk to somebody. So they kept rerouting me all around, you call this number. Okay, I'm going to put you over here. Da, da, da. Finally get to one person, and she's like, yeah, you need to call this number. And she was rude to me, by the way. And then she's like, you need to call this number. And I was like, I just got off the phone with that number. And she was just being super rude. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to... And then I hung up on her. And because I did that, they have to send the cops over. So the cops came to my house. I didn't know they were out there, and they were out there for a while banging on my door, because I was in my bedroom with the door closed. They come, and I answer, and they're like, do you want help? And I was like, yes, that is exactly what I've been asking for, help. So I think I'm going to get help. I walk outside. They handcuff me and put me in the cop car, take me somewhere. I didn't know where I was going. They didn't tell me where I was going. And they dropped me off at the hospital to be 5150'd. And that was one of the scariest things that has ever happened to me. And it was worse for my mental health. It was so scary in there. It was scary in there. So I just like laid in the bed. Some guy came up, called me the N-word, almost attacked me. The cops there had to grab him and throw him on the bed and cuff him down. It was wild in there. So, yeah, all of that happened. And it's a funny thing how abusive relationships work, the only person that I wanted to be there to pick me up was my husband. He didn't pick me up. The hospital wouldn't let him. They sent my sister. So my sister came. And mind you, a little rewind, while I'm in 5150'd, he calls me. Okay? The hospital hands me the phone, and he's like, I talked to your mom, blah, 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 blah. You know, he's all upset, venting to me about some shit while I'm 5150'd. That's the type of person that he was. That's how not here he was, okay? And how not here I was, because me in 5150, because of his dumb ass, I'm listening to him vent to me about him talking to my mom, okay? Anyway, so abusive relationships. My sister drops me off at home. He comes because that was the only thing that was going to make me feel better. Again, I was in an abusive relationship. I know that's stupid. Do not come in the comments section and say anything about it. I know. Anyway, and like, it was dumb. When you're in those situations, you're just not thinking straight, and I know I wasn't. What is life at that point is a question I would ask myself frequently. When he came to the house after I got dropped off, after being 5150'd, I asked him to take me to get some food, and he had the audacity to tell me, unprovoked, it's over between us. I never asked him to be with me. I never brought it up. And he just had, he said this multiple times, not even just like that night, in general. It's like he had to remind me, it's over between us. Like, I don't know if he wanted me, to me it felt like he wanted me to beg for him. And I wasn't going to do that. If you don't want to be with me, don't be with me. I'm not going to beg some man to be with me no matter how much I want him. And also, sir, you have a boyfriend. You say you don't even like me, okay? But again, abusive relationship, toxic. And did his parents call to see if I was okay? No. Anyway, I end up moving out eventually, and when I told his parents, they didn't care. And eventually, and also during that time, some emails were sent to the church. This is also getting very long, but some emails were sent to the church, and I will make one more video and try and land the plane. So let me just say, my in-laws are trash, and they did not care. They don't care about their own children, their son, and they definitely didn't give a about me. I just want to share this story because it's weird, but when I was still living at that house, my mother-in-law hadn't talked to me for like a couple months. And then out of the blue, she hits me up and is like, hey, do you need some groceries? I'm going to the grocery store. She was going to Costco. And I was like, yeah, like I thought she was, throwing out an olive branch, So I was like, okay, like she's going to do something nice for me. Maybe this is her, like, I'm sorry or something like that. She goes and gets the groceries, then comes back and is like, yeah, so, like, pay me back. And I was like, okay, like, I don't have the money right now because you went to Costco and bought groceries for me. And, like, I'm just one person. I don't need a big old Costco situation here. And then, weirdly, like this is weird, 1 week later, she asks me again if I want groceries. And I said no, because I'm like, I can't afford that. Like, what? But I was like, why is she asking me again? 1 week. You bought Costco. Costco's going to last me more than a week. And she wanted me to pay her back knowing the predicament I was in. Like, that's, something else was going on. Something was awry, okay? Anyway, so I ended up being able to move out. It was a really hard time trying to scrape up pennies to do it. But I did. And I ended up having to move far away from my hometown. Like, I moved out of town because I could not afford anything. I literally had to pick up my entire life and go somewhere else because he left me high and dry, and nobody gave a nobody. And that was just so hard for me to move to the middle of bum nowhere because of what this man did to me. So I move, I let them know that I moved out, and basically his dad just responded and said, okay. Then soon after that, somebody sent an email to the staff at the church, and I start getting phone calls and blown up from my husband. Who sent this? Blah, blah, blah. Like, this isn't good. My dad is going to take legal action. Like, you better, figure this out. Blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I literally had no idea what the fuck was going on. Then my sister, after that email goes out, my sister ends up sending an email to the staff at the church, and she sent it to the staff, and then my father-in-law thought that she sent the email to the entire congregation. So he sends an email to the entire congregation. And he obviously didn't read the email that she sent because he thought that she was talking about the childhood abuse that happened, but she didn't say anything about that. So he was freaking out that the church was hearing all of this through email. I wonder why he was freaking out. Anyway, so during live stream church service, he gets up there, reads the email on live stream, and proceeds to name myself and my sister, and essentially says that he's going to pursue legal action for defamation against us. Okay? And when this happens, my brother-in-law hits me up, and he's like, I never want to talk to you again. Fuck you and your family, basically. And I was like, holy shit. It's interesting. And I get it to a point, but when you see it in a meshed family and a narcissistic parent, right, you see how, like, the inner workings are. And even though his father was wrong, his father's a liar, his father was hiding stuff under, the rug and all of that stuff, he will still ride or die for his shitty ass father because of enmeshment and narcissism. That's just a tangent, but it was very interesting to see play out in real time. And I wish I could say, things kind of died down after that, but it didn't really. I was still going through this whole case with the abuse that had happened, and that took a really, really huge toll on me. For a very long time, I felt like I was always on edge with the, investigators talking to me and everything, and trying to get information, because it was getting weirder by the day, especially with the way his parents were handling things. Even the investigators could see that his dad was trash. So it was a very freaking long road, a very long road, and there's so much more, and yeah. So a lot of people, after watching the first video on how I found out my husband cheated on me, have been saying, well, he left months ago. Like, girl, y'all wasn't together. I want to explain a couple of things. The entire time that he wasn't there, he was still coming home to shower. Or he would be there in the middle of the day just sleeping in the bed. Also during this time, he was expressing that, he was trying to figure out how to reconcile our relationship. Or I don't even know that reconcile is a word. Like, we were together, but, he was just struggling to come home because he had to, get his mind together, okay? Secondly, I was an evangelical, so marriage and relationship is seen very differently than if you aren't in the church. Marriage is a covenant. It doesn't just end if, someone's not there, okay? Or not there as consistently as they should be. Especially if they're still like, yes, like, we are together. I am just not here because we're separated, or whatever the word you want to use. The person that I am now, if some man was up in here, like, just left and didn't come back, had all his stuff here, I am putting all of his stuff outside. If he does not come to get it, it is going to the Goodwill, okay? We're gonna have a garage sale. But back then, again, because I was an evangelical, like, I was praying hard for him, for our marriage, for our relationship, that God would just, come in and restore what was broken. And I know, like I said, for people who have not been in the church or whatever, or have not been in the evangelical cult, like, it's hard to understand. But I'm telling you, unfortunately, this is what it looked like for me. And again, alongside with him, like, coming in and out of the house whenever he wanted to. It's not like I just never saw him again. The brother, I almost forgot. There's some that I won't say, but what I will say is he ended up going to jail for S&M, like BDSM, CP. So it rhymes with mild lorn, schleilschlorn. You know what I'm saying?
I think the brother was the one abusing her husband. That's why the daddy didn't want to tell. Plus, she even said she was talking to the abuser and the police.
So what were in the emails? The emails were sent to the staff, and essentially they said, hey, your pastor has done X, Y, and Z. They should not be pastor and they should step down from their position. And my father-in-law was obviously, like I said, thinking that in those emails, they were talking about the childhood trauma that happened. And for whatever reason, he was scared about that. So that's why he went up and did his spiel and said, he was gonna, or he threatened to, take my sister and I to court. So yeah, but it's interesting how the church works, because I had told the associate pastor something that he had covered up for, that it was some financial stuff, okay? And the associate pastor was like, oh my God, like, that really happened for real? And I was like, yes, it did. And he just didn't do anything about it. And he was like, well, I don't want to ask him to step down because I don't want there to be a church split. And I also don't want people to think that I'm trying to take his position as lead pastor. So at the time I was flabbergasted, but now I'm just like, whatever, like, this is how churches work. They act like, they are the epitome of morality and goodness and kindness and love. And they're snakes. Like, they a lot of times do shady stuff. And, you just gotta roll with the punches. So a lot of people have been asking where my family was. My family was around. I've never really had a great relationship with my parents, I am now no contact. So if that gives you any indication, there it is. They were there for me more than they had ever been in my entire life. But looking back, I think they could have been there better for me then. For example, they didn't live too far away, and there was never an invitation for me to come back so I could like get on my feet for a little bit, because I was stressed out about staying in the house that, you know, we had been renting from his parents. I wanted to get out of there as soon as possible. I just didn't have the means to go anywhere. Like, I would have been on the street. So my parents could have done that, and they didn't. And then, you know, as far as depending on his parents, it may have sounded like that in the videos. I wasn't depending on them for anything. I was hoping that they would be a good parents to their own children, or to their own child, you know, maybe help him through his trauma, or, you know, help him get through addiction, you know, offering him options, you know, therapy, whatever it is, right? They didn't care. They didn't care. They just wanted to, you know, hide the family secrets. They didn't care about him. And I, you know, hoped that they would have said, like, what the to their son, but, you know, they didn't, and whatever. It is what it is. But those were the expectations that I had. I don't know that those are, like, wild expectations to hope that parents would care about their child. And if that is a wild expectation, damn. Yeah. So I wasn't depending on his family for anything. I also, because his dad was the pastor, so, and they only lived a couple minutes away from me, okay? I had thought, you know, maybe they would care, you know, just a little bit. Like, I've been in their life for a very long time, so, you know, maybe just a, hey, how are you? Maybe, you know, especially, like I said, because he's a pastor, and their facade is, we care about people. And now, I know you're going to get on me, well, those are church people. Yeah, I know that now. I know that now. Now that I'm outside of the cult of evangelicalism. Yes, you are correct. A lot of pastors, church people, they be saying one thing, talking out the side of their neck, and they don't be meaning what they say. Okay? They're assholes. So, I know that now. But then, I was like, well, you know, you preach all this stuff, and then when it comes down to it, you can't even act on it. So, there's kind of the answer. Like, my parents were around-ish, and I just expected his parents to care about him. We legit be an abusive-ass cult and don't even know it. I was indoctrinated into evangelicalism. It is a cult. And a lot of people have been asking or saying, this bitch didn't leave. He been left you. Why didn't you leave? I was indoctrinated into a cult. When that happens, it changes how you make logical decisions, because your decisions are based off of what you believe God would want. And so, in evangelicalism, the belief is that marriage is a covenant. So, no matter what happens, for the most part, you are supposed to want to work on that marriage. And if the other spouse isn't wanting to work on the marriage, you need to keep praying that the Lord will soften their heart, and the Lord will work a miracle and step in and put your marriage on the right path, because Satan is the adversary and he is trying to tear your relationship apart. So all the way up until, you know, I find out that he was cheating on me, I'm praying, Lord,
Show me what's going on. Because I was in a cult. And for people outside of a cult, the decisions like that sound fucking stupid. And they are. But when that is what you are indoctrinated into, when that is what you know and you are trying to not step outside of God's will, what he would want for your life, it's scary making decisions to just break that covenant. Because it's supposed to be so strong. Because, you say you break that covenant and it's like, oh, you're not in God's will anymore. Your life falls apart. Well, that's what you're told, right? Because you're not on the path that God wanted you on. So it up, especially because a lot of women are abused. I was abused. I was experiencing severe abuse in my marriage. But I couldn't even see it that way because of the cult I was in. I just thought marriage is hard. That's what it is. And because evangelicalism is so patriarchal, there are things that men can get away with and women just sit there like, well, he's the head of the household. I need to trust him. If he messes up in this area, I just need to let God deal with him because he is the head and I need to follow his lead. He is the leader of our home. It's a cult. So, yeah, a lot of the decisions I made in the marriage were stupid as f***. But I know better. I was young and indoctrinated. I'm outside of that now. And that's, why I'm kind of making these videos, because I know that I'm not the only one with this type of story. And I want people to see this and not feel like they're alone, because it can feel like, what the f***? My whole life has blown up and there's nobody else going through this. Why me? And I want people to feel hope, that they're not alone and that they will get through it. And I also want people to see like, oh shit, I'm in a cult, or like the decisions that I'm making, that's stupid. I shouldn't be doing that. Let me try something else. So yeah, people be in cults and have no idea. Have no fucking idea. So sad that he had to be with you in the first place and could not be his true self. I blame the church and the church community. Sad for all of you. This is a really, really important topic. And someone else had also asked, could he be bi? Could he be pan? I don't want to speculate on what he likes or what he is or whatever that is, because I don't think that that's right of me. I say that he's gay because that is what he said to me. So I'm just using the language that he used when he, expressed it to me. But I do want to talk about the church and its place in all of this. I think it is awful for everyone who is a part of the LGBTQ plus community that is in church and they don't feel like they're going to be accepted, or they have this terrible feeling that they are going to burn in hell for all of eternity. And I'm sure there will be a lot of church folk that, are going to come in and be like, but it's true. The wages of sin is death. Our righteousness is as filthy rags, right? I know what you know. Like, I grew up in the church. I know the scriptures, but I also have done extensive studying of all of those things. And through that study, I realized that actually eternal conscious torment is one of the newest atonement theories. But a lot of Christians don't know that. They don't even know what atonement theories are. So go look that up. Anyway,
it's very sad that people aren't able to openly go through this life and figure out what they like and what they want. And it causes so much harm to people. And I think it caused a lot of harm to him, and may still cause harm to him. I don't know. And it's not fair. It is not fair to, people who are a part of the LGBTQ plus community, and it's not fair to the spouses that they marry, because they feel like they have to, try to be straight, and they have to hide a part of themselves, which means that they are lying to their partners, and in the end, everybody gets hurt. And it doesn't just affect the people in the relationship. It affects people all around them. And it's devastating. Like, this experience changed my life and who I am forever. The trauma that I experienced will forever be with me and will forever affect me. Did some good come of it? Yeah, I've grown a lot. I wouldn't be the person that I am today if this didn't happen to me. But I don't want the trauma. I could throw that away. That would be great. But the church does a big disservice to people. It's a terrible, terrible belief. And people will say, well, that's in the Bible. Go study the Bible without circular reasoning. Study it for what it is historically. Do not ask apologists or look into apologetics, because that is a part of circular reasoning. Actually study it, and you will find that actually it's not true. So anyway, all that to say, yeah, like the church F's people up, and the beliefs about the LGBTQ plus community, I believe, are the reason, or is the reason, this kind of stuff happens to so many people. And the belief system is doing way more harm than good. And I don't think that is God's intention.
Make a psycho, make a traffic psycho.